and speak about this very important issue. And I believe we are now live. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Robert Baines. I'm the president of the NATO Association of Canada, and we're proud to co-host this event with Defense and Security Labs to discuss connecting the startup ecosystem with NATO. Not something you hear every day, for sure. Today's event is sponsored by the Borden Weinstock Group of Scotia Wealth Management. Thank you so much. We couldn't do what we continue to do without your support. And our sponsors are really important to us. So please take a look at their website, and it's bordenweinstock.com. And before I introduce our moderator today, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what the NATO Association of Canada is. We're a charitable NGO dedicated to informing Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO, reminding Canadians that they are a part of an alliance of many nations with the goal to maintain peace. However, events like this allow us to reach out to the startup community and ask for active participation in that goal. I look forward to hearing some of the experiences and thoughts of our panel today, and I'm sure you'll join in the comments as well. With that, I'm proud to introduce Jeff Moodson. Jeff is an accomplished entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in achieving corporate goals. As president of dynamiteenetwork.com, a leading software development company, most recently specializing in the area of connected car technology and artificial intelligence. His team also has gained experience in the area of cybersecurity and related fields. By leveraging his experience, Jeff's been able to demonstrate a keen ability to effect significant change by simplifying complex challenges and motivating colleagues to meet desired business outcomes. When we think of affect significant change by simplifying complex challenges, I can't imagine a more complex challenge than NATO's interoperability and procurement. So perfect man for the job. Jeff, thanks so much for moderating this, and I'll give it on to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Robert. And I really appreciate being asked to moderate this great panel. So just to walk people through the agenda here just quickly, we really have two aspects to this program. There's what we call a mini pitch competition, but then more importantly, we want to really get into how entrepreneurs are able to work with NATO through their innovation hub, how and hear feedback from entrepreneurs who have gone down that path. And so we want this to be a very interactive discussion. And if you have any questions, by all means, there's a chat box and other ways in which to communicate. So I actually want to turn it over to Francois first with the NATO Innovation Center to tell a little bit about himself, and then Virginia, and then we'll get on to the pitches. Francois, over to you.
Okay, you want me to present, or do you want me just to introduce
just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, okay, so my name is Francois Dupuzel. I'm a French NATO civilian, and I've been working for almost 8 years now within the NATO Innovation Hub, which is basically an innovation entity that is located in Norfolk, Virginia, in the US, very shortly. So what we do, I will describe later on, if you don't mind.
Awesome, cool. Virginia, over to you.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Virginie Viscardi. I'm a Belgian civilian. I've been working for NATO for 17 years now. My role in Norfolk, Virginia is to be the NATO Communication and Information Agency Senior Representative in North America. So what does that mean? It means my job is to strengthen our existing partnership, but also to expand our ecosystem with North American government and military entities, but also industries, small or large, traditional or not, also with academia and non-for-profit. I have been working for NATO in Brussels now for the last 11 years in Norfolk, and I also had a short deployment in Kabul, Afghanistan. Thank you very much for having me today. I look forward for the conversation.
Great, thank you. So we're going to kick things off with King Ma with Complex Systems Inc. King, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit of a 2-minute pitch about your business.
A little bit about myself. I'm a sales and systems analyst at Complex Systems Inc. focusing on AI integration in defense and space applications. So I've been at CSI for a couple of years now. We're headquartered in Calgary, and what we do is that we provide clients with software, subsystems, and onboard equipment, and other high-value services in both civil and national defense markets. So if I want to start my pitch, then I will share my screen. So it says host disabled. Solution is a framework for trustworthy decision making. Nowadays, we're exposed to a lot of information, like satellite and social media, and we want to make decisions. The challenges here include detecting events from this data, but not all of this is trustworthy. So combining different sources and predicting behavioral patterns becomes important, like finding we at Complex Systems have developed a decision support system based on the observe, orient, decide, and act human decision-making. So let's combine different sources together, perform content trend analysis, predictive models for a decision engine to flag suspicious activities and anomalies. This has been applied to IoT smart cities, spaceborne sensing, real-time oil and gas drilling, and defense and security. So by leveraging information future and artificial intelligence, we can detect, track, and associate events, and also predictive modeling for effective decision support, which allows us to do things like estimate the probability of events, combine images and text together, and learn behaviors to determine effective users. That's our solution.
Okay, perfect. And we can circle back with questions a little bit later on. So Sam, again, you want to introduce yourself a little bit about, your company and pitch it for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, you got it. Is it possible to share my screen as well, Robert?
Just one moment. Sorry, King, if you could all yours.
Awesome. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Sam. I'm the CEO of IMRSV Data Labs. We've been around for about 7 years, and we're based in Ottawa. And so customers of ours, a variety of public sector customers in Canada, in the defense and public safety industry. We support US SOCOM in the States, RCMP in Canada, as well as Public Health Agency of Canada, and then some private sector customers that aren't particularly relevant to the panel today, but Canadian Tire and Steelcase are two of the larger ones. So what do we do in a nutshell? Our main focus has traditionally been high performance natural language processing applications. Most of it features or focuses on speech to speech communication in some fashion. So layering in machine translation in the middle as an example, so that you can facilitate a conversation between multiple different languages. We also do some work with satellite imagery, doing things like predicting the interior floor plan of buildings based on exterior observed features from satellites. And so what did we propose to NATO? It was really basically confronting false information online with factual sources. So this is obviously a mock-up, but basically the idea is similar to an application we've already delivered for the Public Health Agency of Canada. That's targeting confronting false information in vaccine-related research on publicly posted social media. And so the idea is basically taking these knowledge bases, generating a knowledge graph out of them, and then comparing information that's publicly posted to that knowledge graph and confronting it with reputable sources in the replies. So that, in a nutshell, is how we did it. It still relies on human moderation at the end to actually approve the responsive post. And there are a couple reasons for that, but the main is automated posting from a trusted health authority is a terrible, terrible idea. And so that's why we've continued to have humans in the loop. So with that, I will turn it back over to
me. Perfect. Great. Rami, you're up next. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business pitch as well.
All right. I'm the CEO at TriStar Multicopters. We started this company with the goal of developing the longest flying multi-rotor drones available on the market. We work a lot on innovating on electrical powertrains for electric vehicles in general, but we did apply to UAVs first. Our proposal to the NATO Innovation Hub was a long flight time, heavy lift drone, 25 kilo payload, 100-kilometer range. Our company is currently actually pivoting towards just focusing on electric vehicle powertrains. We develop a smart power management system for electric motors that allows to extend ranges by up to 30% on EVs of any size, including UAVs.
Great. So we have a very esteemed panel here that is developing technology in various areas. But in order to have markets for those, you have to connect in with, the defense industry and what have you. So I want to turn it back to Francois and Virginia to really explain about the NATO Innovation Hub, how you connect in with entrepreneurs, and really kind of give an overview into how your engagement works.
Thank you, Jeff. How long have I had to explain that?
You got about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so stop me.
There's a digital hook that will come out or an eject button if you.
All right. I will share my screen because I prepared some slides for you guys.
Great.
Here it is. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So thank you for giving me the floor, Jeff, and thank you for all of you to allow me to present very quickly what is the Innovation Hub and beyond that, how you can possibly engage with NATO. So the presentation that you will have here is about the Innovation Hub, but more than that, it's to give you kind of flavor of what NATO is. So I have prepared a very brief overview on NATO so that you can understand what it is. And I will focus, of course, on the Innovation Hub and all the rules that we need to stick to as part of NATO, but also all the rules that you would need to stick to if you want to engage with us. So very quickly, a brief overview on the NATO structure. I think it's worth depicting a little bit what is NATO and for you to understand how this big machinery works, because we're not really good at innovating, but without that big picture, you won't understand. So there are three main levels in NATO. The first one being the political level. You have nothing to do with that. There is the military strategic level. This is the one that I'm currently in, and I put a red circle around SACT, which is Supreme Allied Command Transformation Norfolk, which is the HQ I'm currently in Virginia. That is a HQ that works in digging into the future, if you will. And the third one, which is the operational level. And you need to keep in mind that everything that we do in the field of innovation is meant to go to the operational level. If I want a command and control system that is not for me or for the sake of innovating, it's only for the command, the aircom, command of air operations, the MARCOM, the Command of Maritime Operation, or the LANDCOM. Those are the people at the lower level on my slide, the operational level. So I don't want to insist on that. That's not the point. It's just to give you a clear overview on where we are and why we are working on the field of innovation. So back to the basic rules that I mentioned earlier in my speech before focusing on the Innovation Hub. You need to know that we consider here in NATO that innovation is a transdisciplinary activity, and everyone can be innovative no matter what. But us at the Innovation Hub, we have created an innovation branch that deals with only innovation as such, and we try to spread, with regards to the rules that NATO has, we try to spread the innovation spirit within the alliance. And so how to collaborate has been long described by NATO, long before we started to talk about innovation. And you can see on my slide that there are 4 rules that you would need to stick to, that we need to stick to when we engage with industry. Is the first one being transparency. We need to clearly claim that we want to engage with industry. We need to give the fair treatment to everyone and a positive partnering. So it's a win-win attitude. We need to be fair and open, and of course, costs lie where they fall. I mean, we need to have the right price for the right product. So those are the basic rules that we need to stick to. Just to give you an example, if we ask for a product, we will have to open that to the 30 nations of NATO, not only to a single one. So that means that we have some rules to request for information or to request for a product, and we cannot make anything without sticking to those rules. So there are 3 efficient ways to engage with NATO. The first one is the NIAG. The NIAG is located, is the NATO Industrial Advisory Group, which is located in Brussels, and every nation is represented into that group. All the big defense companies are included into that group. Very few small and medium enterprises are, but it's also open for small and medium enterprises. So I will give you the link towards their website and how to engage with that NIAG and how to be part of that NIAG. Most of the time, the NIAG does study, very well paid studies, I can tell, for NATO on very specific topics. The TIDE, so I think I have prepared, sorry, I'm going, no, I haven't prepared some slide, but the TIDE is we call it TIDE Interoperability Continuum, which is a series of events that you can take part to, and you will find the link towards that continuum at the end of my presentation. But you can ask me some questions by email, and I will sponsor you to enter the TIDE community. The TIDE community is really interesting. It's a good way for startups to collaborate, mostly on interoperability stuff with NATO. There are different events. The first one is what we call the TIDE Sprint, which is a series of events twice a year, one in Europe, the other one in North America, mostly in Norfolk, that is aimed at finding new ways of working and finding new ideas in the field of software interoperability stuff. And the last one, of course, is the Innovation Hub, which I contributed to create 8 years ago. So very quickly, we have created last summer an innovation branch, so that shows how innovation is being a buzzword inside NATO. So with the ambition to provide a robust incubation environment for military, academia, and industry to fast track applications of innovative operational models and emerging technologies. So the aim here is really to change the capability development model of NATO and make sure that we can keep up with the pace of technology. If we develop a capability and it takes 2 or 3 or 4 years, as it used to be, it will be obsolete when delivered. So what we want is really to keep up with the pace of technology. And for that, we thought that it would be a good idea to organize a little bit the innovation units inside the alliance. And so we have created an innovation branch with a 2-side innovation hub, one part that deals with ideas and ideation processes And the second one, which is more or less a DevSecOps lab, which is meant to develop softwares for the nations and for the operationals, as I said in my first in my introductory words. And so the idea behind that, and that's our motto, is to think big, to start small, and scale it up. And for this, of course, now we have a pretty good manpower. The Innovation Hub is roughly 20 people, but we have also a pretty decent budget, of course. So the Innovation Hub per se is, NATO has long recognized the need to engage with non-traditional actors and not only small and startups, small and medium enterprises and startups, but also to engage with academia. And it was not done properly before we opened the Innovation Hub. So the Innovation Hub was created back in 2013 with the idea to engage with outsiders and get out of the box solutions to NATO non-classified issues. And also, of course, to design potentially some solutions for the future. And that's why we have created that. And so the overall rationale for the creation of the Innovation Hub is to understand the environment, a fast changing environment, to understand the issues, to design concepts and solutions, and to develop prototypes. And the lab has been included into that 1 year ago, but it's exactly the same reason for creating a lab is also to develop prototypes for operationals and for the nations. And we leverage, of course, open innovation through the collaboration with industry, with small, medium enterprises, with academia as much as we can. And of course, we have a huge presence online. So very quickly, the Innovation Hub today is a kind of big network, large network of more than 3,200 members from 72 nationalities. So you understand that it goes far beyond the NATO borders, because NATO is 30 nations and we have much more than that. Not all the people from that network is mobilized at the same time, but when we ask for them for a collaboration, we know that we can count on them, and it's very important for us. So one way that we have found, I told you that one of the goal of the Innovation Hub is also to create and to find new ideas. And you know that the traditional capability development process is a very long one and a very dark and opaque process. And we came up with the idea with the collaboration of the US DoD to create an innovation challenge, which is not radically new. Of course, everyone does that, but I think we are the only one in NATO to do that. And by this, we want to reach out to some non-traditional actors, as I've already said, but also to speed up the capability development process. And it works pretty well. And I will show you that right now. So the idea behind the NATO Innovation Challenge is to reach out to non-defense actors by describing an open-ended problem statement. I know it may be considered as a too open-ended statement each time we have one, but the idea behind that is that we want to gather as much as we can, and especially to make it understandable to a wide array of companies, no matter what size. Secondly, it is conducted on a biannual basis in different NATO nations. The idea behind that is to spread the culture of NATO, to share best practice as well with all the 30 nations of NATO. You must acknowledge that some NATO nations have no innovation cells at this point, and we try to gather to share whatever we have, and we try to help them opening that innovation unit at the governmental level so that we can create a kind of informal NATO innovation network at some point that could share everything they have, issues, solutions, etc., for the sake of building up a common innovation spirit within the alliance. Free participation, we don't ask anything for the small and medium enterprises. And it's a very easy way to do, because we are not asking for presenting a lot of stuff or preparing some prototypes or whatever. It's a very simple way. It doesn't cost money, it doesn't cost time to small and medium enterprises. It was really designed to attract small and medium enterprises. And of course, since we don't want those small and medium enterprises to pay something for nothing, we have opened those innovation challenges by design to a remote participation, so you can pitch online. And most of the people who won that challenge won through an online participation rather than on a physical presence. Just a quick overview now on the first innovation challenges. So there's a mistake on my slide. It's the first one was in the US, but it was in the fall 2017, not 18, with very open-ended problem statement, as I said, and with no NATO jargon. So it was a very civilian problem. It's all, we talk about first responders rather than military, and we try to avoid those horrible and understandable acronyms that NATO is very familiar with. So the first challenges were in the US, in France, Germany, the Czech Republic. So the Czech Republic, we have a beautiful compelling story on that, because we helped them building their innovation unit as at the same times we were doing the innovation challenge. And you can see also the topics that were addressed during those challenge. In fall 2019, we were in Hungary, and we are currently developing the solution with the Hungarians. And the last one was last June in the Netherlands. And I can thank the NATO Association of Canada, because half the participants were from Canada, and some of them are in that audience today. Just a quick word on the further developments once we have winners. So I'm going to show you some examples on how we translate that challenge into a capability for NATO or for the nations. But I need to tell you first that not only the winner or the winning teams of those challenge are developed in the future. What we do usually after each challenge, so we review all the solutions, and we sort them based on what we know, what all the requirements that we know from our HQ here in ACT, and we propose those solutions to the subject matter experts from NATO, just to see whether or not there's a potential development for those solutions. So anyone who is not a winning team may be contacted by NATO for further developments. So my slide shows you 3 examples. Those are 3 winning teams of challenges. The first one is Dataiku, which at the time it went through the challenge, it was still a startup. Now it's a big and huge company. We called it even a unicorn, because it is more than 1 billion worth on the stock exchange. So it's a data science platform helping the NATO Innovation Hub to build and operate our data product. I told you that we had a lab. So everything is based on that product to solve some of the issues that we have in the field of softwares. And we do that with Virginie and with the NCIA, the NATO Communication and Information Agency. So this is the first big contract. So of course, I told you that we were a big machinery. It took us 2 years to sign that contract after the challenge. So we're getting better, but we still have a large space for improvement. So that's the first example. The second one is the Sana mask, which is a device that helps the brain recovering from injuries and mental health, PTSD, and even to go to sleep, which is probably something that is worth digging into for the military. That very device has not been designed for the military. And so what we're currently doing with some nations, and that includes Canada, by the way, we are trying to test it and to see what needs to be done for making it a military device. I mean, we probably need to harden it, etc., etc. And it's made with both the military and medical branches within the NATO nations. So it doesn't cost anything for us for the moment. It's only for the nations, but it's a good way also for us to develop a product out of an innovation challenge. And the third one is even more significant, because that was just an idea. It was not a company. It was a group of teachers from a university who pitched an idea on how to help first responders, logisticians, through the analysis of social media feeds. And it was turned into a company last year, and now it's a product, it's a software that is being developed within the innovation lab. So why I've chosen those three examples is just to show you that there's a way to collaborate with NATO, even if you're not the winner of the challenge. And we have now the processes, but also the money to develop some of the solutions if there is a need, and if we have identified a military and operational end user within NATO. And that's the most tricky point for us, because we started with the ideation process, the innovation challenge, but sometimes we don't find any end user. And so we are not able to develop a product based on, we have no, since we have no end users. If we have no end users, of course, we will not put any money onto it. So those products, the three products that you see on the slide, have been developed because there was an interest among the operationals people from NATO. And that's pretty much it. I think I'm almost 20 minutes. So if you want to go further, I can. So I will share those slides with the NATO Association of Canada. It's not classified, of course, and everything that you will find on our website is not classified neither. So I encourage you to, if you wanna engage with us, is first to dig a little bit into the NIAG. You will have to register to create your account at the NIAG. TideSprint is quite the same, and that's a huge community there are lots of community of interest in the TideSprint events. You have to register also for the Innovation Hub. Once you are a member, you have access to all the papers that we produce, whatever the topic is. And of course, if you want to join me, so I know I have the weirdest name in NATO, the longest one probably, but if you have my presentation, you can contact me directly. And that's pretty much it. That ends up my presentation. I will give the floor back.
I'll take the microphone from you.
Okay.
Perfect. So that was a great overview. We have some questions that we will follow up with a little bit later. Virginia, do you want to kind of explain to the audience your role as it relates to the Innovation Hub and things such as that?
Absolutely. So I have a few slides that I would like to display as well, so that I can create the connection between what Francois just said and what my agency is doing. So allow me to use this. All right. I hope you can all see the slides.
Perfect.
So let me give you some points to introduce what my agency is, how to spell the acronym, and give you a little bit of background at what we do. So I work for the NATO Communication and Information Agency. We are an agency made of 3,000 staff between military, civilians, and contractors. We're located in 28 different locations across the Alliance, but mainly our main campuses are located in Brussels, in Mons, in Belgium, in The Hague, the Netherlands, and in Oeiras in Portugal. So the NCIA agency expends around €1 billion every year. So to give you an order of magnitude, NATO has a budget of about €2 billion. So half of this comes to my agency to be implemented, and 70%, as you can see, 702 million for 2020, will be expended to contracts with industry of all sizes. And the 300 million left are our operating revenue. The NCI agency mission is to lead NATO's digital endeavor, and our focus is always to support NATO exercises. We've supported over 100 of them this year, but also our operations and missions that are ongoing. So in a nutshell, what do? Well, we develop digital solutions and critical C4ISR capabilities. So what we do comes right after what Francois has explained. ACT, Allied Command Transformation, is looking at the pain points, the capabilities that the user needs, and then translate this into defined requirements, and then hands it over to my agency in the C4ISR domain to implement it. And then we go and take those requirements, and we go to industry, and we work with industry through contracts to implement those solutions. So our goal is to turn in, the money that NATO has into competed contracts with industry. So besides C4ISR capabilities, we connect NATO, nations, and forces. We are operating and defending NATO networks, so we are responsible for cybersecurity within the NATO command structure. We provide support to exercise and operations, as I said, but we also support air and ballistic missile defense, the famous Allied ground surveillance project that was completed recently. And interestingly too, we offer training and other services that we have in the catalog that you can find on my agency's website. So now what do we do with SMEs, with small and medium-sized companies? So just like Francois explained, he said that they're the only one doing innovation challenges. I challenge that. We also have our own Defense Innovation Challenge that we organize on an annual basis, so not twice a year. We're doing it usually in parallel to our industry conference called NITEC. And we've started in 2016. And what we've done in the past is to offer 2 or 3 pain points that the agency is facing. And then we offer small, medium-sized startups, larger companies to give us their ideas. And what we do is we select the winners. And when our industry conference takes place in the spring, we offer those companies to then brief their product, which gives them great visibility, not only to NATO, but to 30 potential markets in the nations. And we have feedback from some of these companies that have won with us, that they've been approached by nations, they've been helping us with some of our exercises. So there is also a path after that. That said, one of the main feedback that we got back from industry is there's not really much money involved in those challenges, and it's absolutely true. So what we've tried to do this year, and it's a first, is to look for a problem, a proposal, a problem statement that we wanted to solve, and then that would enable, once we receive proposals, to have those winning companies to be invited to bid on actually the contract that will come up later on. And that's why this year we've done something that's a little bit more specific. So of course it constrains the types of industries that are able to send us proposals, but you know, we're doing the lessons learned. We will be announcing those winners in November at our virtual industry conference, and I will give you more information on that in a minute. And so we're hoping that this is something that gives a path to small companies to then being able to get access to real business with NATO. So beyond our Defense Innovation Challenge, we find it really important to help and facilitate small companies to be able to talk with other companies that are of a larger size, that have more experience with us. So we've called those the B2Gs meetings, and we've usually organized them around our annual industry conference. But as you know, we haven't had anyone this year. So, so we failed you guys a little bit by not being able to offer those networking opportunities. So what we're looking at is a small and medium-sized matching and mentoring program. So SMEs would be able to apply to be a mentee and to work not only with a mentor from industry, but also some of our experts in the agency. So they'll be able to twice, I think, in the course of 6 months, being able to meet with some of us and ask questions that will not be related to contracts or any bidding opportunities, but it'll be about helping you understanding how to do business with NATO, etc. So we're hoping to launch this in the end of this year or early next year. Just like Francois mentioned, we're also doing technology incubators. So we've realized that we would like to have industry helping us earlier in the process than after we launch a competition. So we've tried that in a project that was dealing with cybersecurity requirements. And so this process worked really well. We launched the proposals and got 40 proposals back, and we awarded small contracts to 7 companies. Within 4 months, these companies and the agency were able to refine requirements for cyber requirements, and the feedback was excellent. And of course, we're using this into the implementation of our capability packages after that. So, and then the last thing that I wanted to speak about is our NATO industry cyber partnership. So we are working with industries that are working in the cyber domain, and we've enabled partnership agreements to be signed with those entities so that we can share information on incidents or threats in the cyber domain. And this has worked really well. We have signed more than 15 of those partnership agreements, and it enables an exchange of information that is really useful to us as we are looking at securing our networks. Further, we have also partnered with the Hague Security Delta. That's an organization that helps bring academia, industry, and NATO together to organize a cybersecurity summer school. And so this helps young people from industry, but from academia as well, to learn more about cybersecurity in a wide environment. I would like to mention very quickly other initiatives that we have where we collaborate with industry. Unfortunately, they are not designed yet to bring in small and medium-sized enterprises, but we're hopeful that they can be adjusted in the future to meet those requirements. So we have what we call our NATO Software Factory. That's a collaboration platform on the cloud that enables industries that have signed contracts with us to develop their products and test them on this platform rather than doing it themselves, so they can test it and see if it meets requirements hand in hand with our NCIA project managers. What you see as the DCIS cube is what we call the Deployable Communication and Information System Cube. That was also an initiative where we asked industry to help us figure out how to create the architecture of our future deployable CIS equipment, which were very heavy, very complex to use, and very expensive. So 15 companies have contacted the agency and have decided to work with us to help us create an architecture that meets today's requirements. And later on, they were completely able to bid on these contracts. So that didn't prevent them from then working with us. We've since then had a second phase of this DCIS Cube that has over 25 companies expressing interest in working with us. So, and then let me move this very quickly. For those interested in training, we also have now an NCI Academy located in Oeiras, Portugal. You can see the beach from the academy. This is a really difficult place to work at. And where you can develop trainings for our command structure and in the CIS domain, C4ISR domain. We've moved an old CIS school that was located in Latina to Portugal. Unfortunately, we didn't update our technology and the way we provide training. And now we're looking at a technology uplift with such thing as gamified training, virtual classrooms, the use of avatars. So you will see on our website, if you take a look at it, that in the future, we're looking at the help of industry to figure out how to train the new generation of soldiers that are not interested in large classrooms and syllabus and all these things that we had to do. So keep an eye on that. And then very quickly to finish this slide, we've also recently got approval to launch a not-for-profit framework. So in this case, this is an opportunity for entities that are not industry, that are education center, academia, not-for-profit entities, where they could come and help us on some projects where it may not be best to work with industry for a reason of a conflict of interest. So we are now working with NATO's delegations to identify some of these entities that potentially could bid on some of our projects. And so my last slide is just to give you the information about who we are. I'm not going to send you the slides because everything I've said right now is available on our NCIA website. So I encourage you to go in and take a look at it. You will see our business opportunities. You will see how to contact our contracting officers. We're also on social platforms, social media platforms. So check us out on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And then if you have any questions, my name is Virginie, and you can reach my team at the email you see on the screen, industryrelations@ncia.nato.int. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and I'm open for questions.
Yeah, perfect. So before we talk to the entrepreneurs here, we actually have a couple of questions, and I don't know if Francois wants to answer Virginia. Number one, what's the typical size of company that you guys work with? The second thing related to that is, what happens with the intellectual property? Does that stay with NATO? Is that with the entrepreneurs? And the third thing, just to briefly talk about it, what does the partnership framework look like? I mean, is it a very complex document? Is it a 2-page? Is it more, look at innovation and open up markets for entrepreneurs? So, Francois or Virginia, if either of you want to answer those 3 questions.
Virginie, up to you.
All right. So the first question was about how complicated was it to do a partnership with the agency?
Yeah, with NATO, absolutely.
With NATO. So it depends on what kind of topics you're interested in. So if you want to be mentored by the agency, there will be a very easy process to request some help. If you want to share cyber incidents in the cyber domain, then you reach us and we meet and discuss how to establish a partnership agreement. This is again very easy. Same with our threat vector analysis. There's a conversation that takes place between the company and the agency, and together we decide if it's a good fit to exchange information. When it comes to partnership that involves money, exchange of money and contracts, just as Francois explained earlier, we are not allowed to demonstrate any preference from any nations or any industry. So when we are looking for help from industry and there will be a contract in the end, we have to open these opportunities to all industries across the 30 NATO nations. And then we receive these proposals and then we engage, or contracting officers will engage with those companies. You asked the size. Unfortunately, because the NATO procurement process is quite slow, quite cumbersome, unfortunately, this is a real impediment for small companies to be able to bid on our projects, because they can't oftentimes not afford to wait 2 years to get a contract awarded after they submitted the IFB. So this is really something that NATO recognizes and is looking to improve. I've mentioned that NATO is looking at updating or reforming its acquisition practices to be more agile, but this is very much work in progress right now. Time is of the essence and the momentum is here. There's a new understanding in NATO that we need to be fit for innovation. And so we're seeing the nations starting to realize that innovating in their own nation is not enough. They need to innovate within NATO. They need to make sure that our capability delivery process is agile enough so that we are able to keep our technological edge and be ready to face our adversaries if we need to. So my pitch is about patience, but there is something that's been done within NATO to improve the way we work with small companies.
Cool. Francois, anything you want to sort of add, or did she cover?
Well, there's not much I can add to that. As I showed you in my first slide, we have a framework for the collaboration with industry, and unfortunately, we need to stick to it. It's not a real agile framework, of course, but we are working in changing the spirit in order to stick or to keep up with technology. Now, I just want to add something with regards to the innovation challenge. We on each innovation challenge, we ask people who wants to apply to it to sign the request for information. That is the kind of legal coverture that we have that allows us to go further with the company applying to the challenge. With regards to your question on the intellectual property, we don't take any property on that. It sticks to the company that applies to the challenge. So it's quite the same answer than Virginie. At the end of the day, we still haven't changed our processes enough to be really agile and be very fast in procuring in different way. But we are aware of that.
It's a work in progress, as they say, right?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I know, for us innovators and for startups and small and medium enterprises, it's never fast enough, of course. We would love to accelerate the trend, but it's a big machinery. We have, it's based on the consensus of the 30 nations. So that's how it needs to go up to the political level, as you saw on my slide, and come back to us, and it takes time, unfortunately. But we are working on improving those stuffs.
Awesome. So I want to turn the discussion over to the entrepreneurs, because they've been able to navigate working with the defense industry and things such as that. Sam, can you comment in terms of why you decided to have the defense and the security industry as a potential client? We saw that you had a slide with I think it was Canadian Tire and Steelcase. Comment about that. What are lessons that you've learned? Ultimately, I want this to kind of be a little bit of interactive discussion, because we want entrepreneurs and this SMEs on this webinar to, learn from the trail that you've blazed. And then I'll, ask Rami and King to comment. So Sam, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I think that you saw some private sector companies on that slide, and the reason that they're on that slide is because when we started the company and said we wanted to work in the defense and public safety industry in Canada, to be perfectly blunt, most people laughed at us. And I think that
you're showing them now.
Yeah. Well, still not totally. Most of our customers are not in Canada, so I think that sort of says a lot. But the biggest challenge that we've perpetually faced is like the defense procurement process is long, slow, and like extremely geared to well-resourced incumbents. And so the lesson we learned pretty early on was like, if you're going to survive and sort of keep that focus, you're going to do a lot of other things outside the defense and public safety industry to sort of keep yourself moving along the way and keep salaries paid and keep the lights on, because you're whale hunting in a way that like no one else really appreciates. And so it's I think the biggest lesson we've learned repeatedly is that whatever the timeline you're told, multiply it by 5 and then hope for the best. I think that's the hardest lesson that we continue to learn nonstop. So
yeah, awesome. Rami, you want to comment in terms of how you decided to get in? What are the 1 or 2 things we've heard from Sam? His key takeaway is, if you plan for 6 months, that'll probably be a year to 18. So what are talk about your engagement?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, our company is really focused on industry, industry partners. That's what we're going after right now. The entering defense, we have to accept that for us is a side project and a long-term vision for the company because of how slow procurements are in on the defense side. Obviously, we're in drones and we're competing against well-entrenched competitors, like FLIR and Lockheed Martin. It becomes also difficult for us to make an entry there without having a commercial product at least that can prove that what we do better than what the military is using today. So that's been our strategy for now. And to be honest, one of the places that we are looking more than anywhere else is the US, where they do have innovation budgets that allow us to move very rapidly if we propose a product that they feel is useful for them or that they want to explore a little bit more. There are budgets for us to be able to build proof of concepts for them very rapidly. And that's the only way that we can really work with the military. We can't afford to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a military product without having clients sign on first. That's my takeaway, really.
Awesome. So is it safe to say that, and Sam touched on this as well, where it's great to work with the defense industry because it gives you some, solid clients, recognizable names, which I'm sure helps raise the profile of your companies. But it's one of those things where you have to be a business that has other sources of revenue, other areas, and everyone refers to the dual use scenario. Would you agree that you just can't focus on the defense industry on its own? You have to have other sources of markets, correct?
Yeah. I'm not sure where we would be today if we had focused solely on the military a year ago. I don't think we would have made it, to be honest. You need to have an alternate source of revenue to be able to pursue a first military contract for a startup, which I think is unfortunate as well, because then what happens after 2-3 years is that our company becomes so geared towards a commercial and industrial clients, that it's no longer optimized for the military. It's no longer optimized to do the job that the military wanted to do. So our drones, for example, are smaller now because that's what industry wants. Whereas the military would prefer a drone that's larger, that can carry more advanced sensors. And it's not something that we're going to be able to provide unless we have a very specific contract to do so.
Interesting. King, do you want to briefly comment a couple of minutes in terms of, you know, your interaction? What are one or two key takeaways that you've had as part of this journey?
My colleagues in the field have a background in defense, so we also noticed that like things, new trend in automation and AI is kind of more popular these days. So a lot of contracts and proposals that we see coming from defense and space agency have been leveraging these technological developments in AI. So this is why we've contemplating in that direction as well. My advice would be to spend some time understanding the data and applications and understand your strengths and expertise. Because some startups might not have like a product ready, right? So they might need to leverage understanding the technical challenges to overcome.
Yeah, and that's good insight, right? To understand your, you know, your value proposition, you know, and go from there. I'm just going to open up the floor to another couple of comments, and I'd be curious to hear NATO's Virginia and Francois, as well as you know, the entrepreneurs. But we now know what the hurdles are. I'd be curious on your thoughts on how we, you know, get over these hurdles. So, is it something as simple as, and I'll probably direct this question to Francois, do you find when you deal with entrepreneurs, should they also have a defense contractor with them before working with you guys? Or is it, how flexible is kind of your model, you know?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer that question. I would not necessarily recommend to have a defense contractor, but you need to be very, very patient as well. I mean, we cannot contract out a small and medium enterprise unless we have found a real deep interest within the community of users. I mean, the NATO operationals, as I pointed out in my speech, and that's very, very difficult. Again, you may have the most advanced technology. Before we found a new user and before we found a real interest and moving the funds, etc., it may take a while. So it may take a while. So it is an issue. Now, of course, the nations are much more flexible than we are, and as Virginie said, we can provide a huge visibility. I showed you this with the Sana mask, you know, the sleeping mask. NATO is unable to find a military end user, but nations can, and that's why we have provided 4 potential markets to that American startup, just because nations raise their hand, and that is worth investing, or at least applying to the challenge, just for the sake of expanding the visibility of your company. In other words, the price performance ratio is attractive in that it costs very little effort, and it can pay off significantly in terms of visibility. But in terms of money, it's more difficult as of today.
In essence, you guys are able to open up doors that normally people wouldn't have access to, right? Exactly. And that's the big value proposition you guys bring to the table.
There's one point that I haven't mentioned, is that as part of the reward that we grant after the challenges, we invite the company to show off their technology into a NATO meeting. And a NATO meeting is, you know, the big conference is not only the 30 nations, but also the partner nations, and that makes also altogether almost 60 nations, and that's interesting, and that's how we got some interest from the nations for the Sana mask. So we invited them to a conference last year, and we had some 4-star generals trying the mask and trying to sleep in the middle of the day. And after that, they said, okay, I want you to test this. That's what they say to their staff. And that's how we expand the visibility of that company. But from NATO, they didn't get a penny.
Yeah. No. But I mean, at the end of the day, you open those doors, and you know, it's another marketing kind of outreach in which once a product's developed, you know, especially when we're talking dual use, to leverage your contacts and what have you. Virginia, did you want to comment on something there quickly?
Yes, I just want to bring some optimism here. You talked about partnering with some larger defense contractor. This is something that we encourage in our agency and through our flagship events. So we have the conference NITEC that I've mentioned that used to be in person, and we're hoping that next year we can come back to that. But we've seen that we had over 600 B2Bs meeting during the 3 days of our conference. And from that comes out some partnerships or consortiums that have led some companies to then get a chunk of a NATO contract. And it's a great first experience for these smaller companies to then understand how to do business with us. For instance, you have the company Composalt that's still considered a medium-sized company from Canada that has now won a contract with us. So I think that there's optimism to have there. We're of course hoping that as NATO is rethinking its acquisition practices, that we can improve the way we bring in the small companies, even on products rather than projects, but opening it up to industry more widely. And then finally, yes, the process in NATO is very, very complex. We know that the United States has found a way to be creative through their small business innovation research program, through their DIU, Defense Innovation Unit, the other transaction authority process. These are all models that we're looking at, and we're hoping that we can bring some of those models to NATO when the nations are rethinking the way we procure software-intensive projects. And then my last point is talk to your national delegation. NATO has delegations in Brussels. You have a national technical expert. Engage with them first. The lobbying that you will do through them will then go all the way back up to the political level and then bring the changes that we need. Nations are in charge. As much as the agency or Allied Command Transformation wants to do bigger and better things, if the nations are not behind this, we won't go anywhere. So my plea to you is find out how to send me an email. I'll tell you who to talk to in your delegation, your Canadian delegation, so that we can give you some answers and more information coming directly from your nation.
Awesome. And on that note, I think that's a great way to end, and we'll be able to circulate to members in the audience that contact information. So I want to thank everyone. It's been a great discussion. It's been a real eye opener, and at least it's the first in a few steps. So I want to turn it back over to Robert to close things out.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Your moderation has been outstanding, and I think it's really great to get so many voices discussing this exciting opportunity and possibility, the closer integration and the usefulness of the startup ecosystem to NATO. So thanks so much for everybody. If you were here in person, I'd be giving you each a bottle of wine. So that's owed on our part. But if you are continued to be more interested in what we're talking about and about the NATO Association more generally, please do engage. And Francois and Virginie, do you mind if we post your emails, or perhaps I can just post my email at the bottom of the YouTube link, so that people can perhaps send any further questions, or if they want to get in contact, etc. With that, thanks so much for joining us. The NATO Association was proud to host this with the Defense and Security Labs. And I gotta give my kudos to Alexia Mini and to Lily Gia, who were helping to maintain this event and get it all ready. And of course to our sponsors, Borden Weinstock Group and Scotia Wealth Management. So thanks so much everybody for joining, and hopefully we'll have another chat sometime soon. Cheers everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.